Hello everyone and welcome to the Ticker.com's news channel on YouTube. On this channel, we review stock markets and discuss financial news, market trends, and economic data from Wall Street to Global Street. So let us get started. Wall Street indices and global markets struggled after the sharp escalation of tensions in the Middle East added another layer of uncertainty. Much ballyhooed U.S.-China trade agreement this week failed to inspire confidence in the Trump administrations amid lack of concrete detail. Moreover, the European Union and Japan signaled significant gaps in expectations with the U.S., signaling protracted uncertainty in the months ahead. One thing is sure, the July 9 deadline for trade talks is not likely to yield any clarity and certainty craved by businesses, which could force many small and independent businesses to shut their doors permanently. Logistics, travel, entertainment, independent retailers, restaurants, home builders, and business services providers are suffering since late February. Global markets fell sharply on Friday after Israel launched a wave of airstrikes targeting Iran's nuclear infrastructure, military sites, and top commanders and nuclear scientists. Let us review key economic data released this week, and we start with the U.S. Overall consumer price inflation in the U.S. edged up slightly in May amid sustained increase in food and shelter prices, were offset by the weaknesses in energy prices. Overall inflation is expected to accelerate in the months ahead on the back of Trump tariffs and a potential rebound in energy prices. Core inflation, which excludes volatile food and energy prices, held steady at 2.8% for the third month in a row in May. Elevated core inflation confirms that services are still passing on prices to consumers and inflation is well anchored in the economy. U.S. producer price inflation accelerated in May as producers continue to pass on higher prices for industrial goods. Across the Atlantic, the euro area trade surplus fell sharply from the previous year in April, after chemical exports declined following the front-loading by the U.S. businesses in the previous month ahead of Trump tariffs. Exports declined 1.4% from a year ago, and imports rose a fraction as businesses adjust to erratic U.S. trade policy. Consumer price inflation in India continued to decline for the seventh consecutive month in May and fell to a 6-year low. The persistent decline in food price inflation contributed to weakness in overall inflation. In other economic news from around the world, China's exports growth slowed and trade surplus soared above $100 billion in May. China's trade surplus with the U.S. eased to $18 billion in May from $20.5 billion in April as businesses stopped ordering amid tariff uncertainty and lack of clarity about demand sustainability amid higher prices. Let us review key events in global bond, currency, and commodity markets last week. The yield on the 10-year U.S. Treasury edged down to 4.4% after investors assessed the escalating tensions in the Middle East. Texas crude oil prices surged more than 25% to $77 a barrel and jumped to the highest level since February amid fears of supply disruptions following Israel's strike against Iran. Natural gas prices in Europe edged up 5% to 38 euros per megawatt hour amid supply worries, tracking a broader increase in energy price after Israel launched a wave of strikes against Iran's nuclear infrastructure and military installations. The euro stabilized at $1.16 as investors sought safety amid escalating trade tensions in the Middle East. The yen appreciated to 144 against US dollar as heightened geopolitical tensions fueled demand for safe haven assets in Asia. Let us shift our attention to major stock markets in the US, Europe, and Asia. The S&P 500 index and the Nasdaq Composite sold off, adding another layer of uncertainty amid heightened global trade and geopolitical tensions. European markets trimmed weekly gains and defense and energy stocks rallied on Friday. Nikkei 225 stock average declined amid worries of higher energy prices and crude oil supply disruptions after Israel launched unilateral strikes against Iran. Hong Kong and China indices extended weekly losses after trade talks with the U.S. failed to provide a clear path to an agreement on tariffs and export bans. India market indices extended losses for the third consecutive week amid worries of higher energy prices, stoking cooling inflationary forces. We now shift our attention to merger deals, market movers, and earnings updates from leading companies last week. Oracle surpassed market expectations in the fourth quarter, and the company signaled additional cloud revenue growth ahead. Victoria's Secret said net sales declined in the latest quarter, and the lingerie retailer issued cautious outlook. Dave & Buster's Entertainment failed to meet analyst expectations in the first quarter. Comparable store sales in the current quarter to date were down 2% from a year ago. GameStop Corporation swung to a profit in the first quarter. Net sales declined, and electronics retailer sold its Canadian operations. Adobe posted strong second quarter results, and the content software developer reiterated its outlook. The furniture retail company RH Corporation, formerly known as Restoration Hardware, swung to a profit in the first quarter, and the home furniture retailer is shifting more of its production to the U.S. and Italy amid uncertain U.S. trade policy. Oxford Industries posted weak quarterly results, and the parent company of Tommy Bahama and Lilly Pulitzer revised its outlook to include additional tariff costs. Tesco reported improved sales in the first quarter, and the grocery and general merchandise retailer said it has bought back about one-third of its announced stock repurchases, and the balance will be completed by April 2026. Fabsoft, an Austria-based software and cloud service provider, reported higher sales, but earnings declined, and the company proposed to pay an annual dividend. Inditex failed to meet analyst expectations in the first quarter, and the parent company of fashion retailer Zara posted to pay an annual dividend. Chow Fai Tuk Jewelers reported a decline in annual sales and earnings, reflecting tough retail environment in the mainland China. In the week ahead, investors in the U.S. are looking forward to the release of retail sales and industrial production updates. Moreover, the Federal Reserve is set to announce its rate decisions, and investors are divided, but the central bank is less likely to cut interest rates on Wednesday. On the earnings front, market anticipates results from Jabil Circuits, John Wiley & Sons, Lennar, Progressive Corporation, Accenture, CarMax, Carnival Corporation, and Digital Turbine. In Europe, investors are looking ahead to the release of inflation rates in Italy and the UK and the Eurozone, as well as the Eurozone labor cost, wage growth, construction output, and current account data are also on tap. The Bank of England is also set to announce its interest rate decisions on Thursday. On the earnings front, market expects results from Aéroport de Paris, Triad Group, Vinci, Ashtead Group, Flughafen Wien, Speedy Hire, and the Berkeley Group. In Asia, investors are looking ahead to the release of China's industrial production, home prices, retail sales, fixed asset investments, and unemployment rate. India is expected to report its manufacturing data, and Japan is scheduled to release its inflation rate, balance of trade, machinery orders, and foreign bond and stock investments. On the earnings front, investors are anticipating results from Grand Ming Group, Maxon Limited, Eco World International, Bison Holding, Oriental Watch Holdings, Envision Greenwise, Upbest Group, and Namesong Holdings. You can review daily U.S. and global financial market news, stock movers, earnings releases, SEC filings, and economic updates on ticker.com and 123jump.com. You can find the latest financial books on Rodera.com, keep up with financial industry events on eventsinamerica.com, review ETF and mutual fund performance and in-depth profiles on tickerfunds.com, and review market updates and stock movers in India on niveshak.in. That is all for today, and we will see you next week.